Imagine a world filled with stand users where you, the invincible stand user Jotaro, have been given 100 days to take down Dio, the vampire stand user. I found myself in a small cell which did not look like Japan to me. I had no way out except to use this power I turned myself in for in the first place. Though luckily this power was strong enough to take down all the pigs around me, so I had nothing to really worry about. I began looking the area for food and any like iron and gold and whatnot I could try and find, and then I got attacked by this way bigger pig, probably the chief pig, who had a ton of strength, did half my health almost immediately. I had to hide, and when I went for an attack, I got completely destroyed and had to make some armor first, just in case, because I did not want to die on my first day. I got back to it, and he made this massive crater, which was his downfall, and I luckily was able to barrage it until he died. Upon his death, he dropped this mutant Hoglin tusk, which I have no idea what it does, but then afterwards, I was completely chased out of the area I was in at the time, and made this weird like tower thing, which luckily was pretty safe, or so I thought, because I got sniped from a mountain from a mutant skeleton, who, by the way, is a stand user. If you're unsure why, you'll see in a second. I made some armor to make sure I didn't die because this guy packed a punch, and then I started to begin fighting him, and this guy punched my stand away. He could see my stand, and not only that, he had enough strength to punch it away, which was insane. So this guy was a real challenge, but luckily after a while, he couldn't take all my barrages and it eventually exploded. And once he died, I started picking up all his pieces. I think you can make some armor out of this. And finally, I was free and outside of the really weird just pig village, I guess, and I was more than happy. I broke this like weird just box thing, which is unbreakable, by the way. Like even my powered thing can't even break it. It could break a lot of things. Though after running in the desert for a long time, I found just this chest of the water and whatnot, which I happily took out and started drinking because I needed water. And it turned out around the corner was this huge village, and these guys just standing menacing. I went into the desert temple and found some really good loot actually, like a lot of gold, diamonds, diamond horse armor, things like that, which I wouldn't use personally, but it was good nonetheless. And then I chose a house to sleep in, which got raided, but luckily I took the W and was judged for it. What are you lot looking at? Huh? I slept. What's your problem, huh? What's up? Yeah, I'll fight you. Yeah, that's what I thought. I spent a while in this village, and I eventually saw an old man fighting an iron golem. Oh shit! Turns out this was my granddad, and he had a thing for foreigners. And I'd always lose him too, like he'd just be in the weirdest places doing the weirdest stuff. We traveled for a bit until we finally came across... Help me! Oh my God! This was the village ran by Barocco the Sun Chief, or you could take it as Barocco the Hamon Chief, because he can just control powers of the sun, and this packed a punch. And I wasn't very used to the power I had, and I ran out of stamina a lot, and there was just so many enemies I had to fight, but luckily Joseph kind of carried the fight since he knew what he was fighting against. I had zero clue. So he knew what to take out, all the healers and whatnot, and this guy had like hyper armor or something, so I could barely even attack him, and he shot lasers from the sky. Like I had no idea what was going on, because this was not similar to the power I had. But eventually I got the courage to go in for an attack. I didn't have the courage anymore because I nearly died, but I went in for a second attack, and this time I managed to dodge that massive laser and barrage him, and this time he did not survive the attack. And that was the end of Barocco the Hamon Chief. Joseph took pride in just wearing the foreigners' stuff. He really does not like foreigners. He made that evidently very clear to me. But if I wore this like helmet, I could summon these guys, which Joseph still doesn't like. He was very violent to foreigners for some odd reason. Apparently he hates Japanese people, which isn't ideal. But with this power of mine, I could spring myself across the water, which was pretty useful. But when it came to swimming, I just couldn't do it for some reason. I guess like the fat chain I wear in my coat was just a bit too heavy, which is fair enough. I eventually got to the biome which my mum was just living in, and it was just filled to the brim with vampires for some reason, so we took care of those. And eventually got to the house where I found my mum just like laying in bed menacingly. When suddenly, Joseph had a realization. Oh no! Turns out my power's called a stand, so I left one of the little minions in place to look after my mother, and then I went out to go get stronger, to fight this Dio person, which apparently has my grandfather's body, and he's a vampire, and he's the reason we have stands, and he was very strong apparently, and I just was nowhere near close enough to beating him. I needed better armor, more understanding of this thing called a stand. There was so much I had to do, and so much I didn't know. But luckily, I felt pretty confident and ready to fight this thing. But if I was going to fight him, I needed tools and I needed armor. And I needed a place to store that stuff. So I was going to make a backpack, and that required the death of everything around me. Minus the villages, of course, I'm not an inhuman piece. Luckily, the natural just spawning stuff around me had everything I needed, like string, webs, leather, sticks, and whatnot. So it wasn't too painful, just had to travel a tiny bit to get everything I needed. And with that, I got back to my crafting table and made my first backpack. And this thing had a decent amount of storage, not as much as I'd like. It was like a chest, I guess. But what you can do is upgrade the backpacks. So that I did. Now I have an iron backpack, which is way bigger, and could store more stuff. So win-win. And then I made an iron pickaxe to go mining, which I hate doing, by the way. I hate mining. But luckily, I was just so motivated to do this. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it was pretty bad, but luckily I could use Star Platinum. It would just mine for me. So being a sand user is great. But if you were wondering, Star Platinum cannot break bedrock. But what he can break is diamond. Diamond is breakable. But after a bit of just cave traveling and exploring, I found a flying torch, which was kind of weird, and I found this massive door, which I opened and realized they're very Jotaro of me. So I broke the door, and I blocked this arrow because I am Jotaro, and then I explored a tiny bit, and there was basically just mob spawners and a ton of mobs and whatnot. Nothing too special. I wanted the loot mostly, and there wasn't a lot of it, and chests were like hidden in certain areas, and it wasn't all that great. But what I did find was this infinity book, which would be really useful just to obviously put on bows, but to give to Joseph to put on his bow, since he can infuse arrows with Hamon. Luckily, this dungeon was really close to surface, so getting back to the top was very, very easy and didn't take long at all. I had a quick look around me and realized I was in the middle of nowhere. Found this well, so luckily I wouldn't die of dehydration or anything like that. And I started making myself some diamond armor, which obviously would help against the fight against Dio. And then I found this village, which housed the strangest looking villager I think I've ever seen. What? That's so scary. What? I bet you're a sand user. Can you see this? I bet you can. Are you ignoring me? Alright, he's ignoring. Okay, he's ignoring me. I spent the sunset crying with my stand user because I hate being ignored. When morning arose, I decided I'd upgrade my backpack yet again, and this was pretty easy, and now I had a Gucci backpack because, I mean, Jotaro liked that kind of stuff. I ran back to the place where I found myself when I mined out the cave and found this lava pool, which I just wanted obsidian for, and I decided that I'd go way overkill and mine the entire pool of obsidian. And if you didn't know, there's nearly about 2 stacks in a pool, so I didn't know that, but now you know. And I made this fat nether pool because, I mean, I had the obsidian for it, got a flint, and then headed on in. And this place was surprisingly safer than the overworld, despite being completely overrun with vampires and pigmen just hating my existence. It was weird, since while I was fighting the pigmen, everything just went black and white and everything just froze. It was about like a third of a second, and I got back to reality maybe. I had no idea what it was, but I kind of forgot about it. I was getting overrun by pigmen, so I decided to use my massive stand user big brain and managed to take them all out. And then soon after I found the nether fortress. I decided I'd get some blade rods since I didn't really know what I was going to need to fight Dio. I've never really fought like a proper vampire before, only the stinky weak ones. So I thought maybe blade rods would be needed. Maybe Eyes of Enders would be needed to try and beat him. I don't know the rules of a vampire. I know sun is a really, really big thing. I don't know if blades just use the power of the sun or anything, so I decided I'd get some just in case. Then I was attacked by a ghast, which had absolutely no chance of beating me, since Star Platinum can easily react to these type of things. And honestly, it was kind of cool since the stand kind of like comes from behind me, and it was just cool, and I destroyed it. I then found a bastion which also had 0 chance of taking me down because Star Platinum is just way too quick, way too powerful. I'm like an invincible stand user basically. I'm crazy. I should call myself the invincible stand user JOTARO KUJO. Or is that too cringy? Never mind. I was even taking out those like piglin brutes which 2-shot you in regular Minecraft, so I was feeling very strong. But as time went on, my strength was really about to get put to the test. Found this like mutant blaze or something, and this thing was really, really powerful, only because it threw me around. I nearly died of full damage so many times, but luckily I managed to regain my senses, I guess, which didn't even feel like it was doing much damage. Like, it didn't react to being barrages, and kind of just kept throwing me around and burning me alive, and it was honestly not an ideal fight, and I did think I was going to die, but eventually kind of just exploded or imploded, and that was the end of the fight. But I had less than a second to react to the next attack, which was by what looked like a human maybe. I couldn't tell. Everything was burning, everything was fiery, but by using my stand's improved vision, I saw it as a human. And a stand user at that as well, someone who could use a stand just like me. I had no idea who he was, why he was attacking me or anything like that, but luckily his stand user is ranged and mine has just straight power. So when he took me out and tried to throw me away for range, I could jump across the entire map to get him, and I barraged him, and eventually, after a couple trades here and there, managed to knock him out and take him down. And then he showed me his stand. Together we tried to leave the nether, and I offered to use my flint and steel, and he just wanted to show off and show that his stand could light it for me, which to be fair it did, and it was actually really cool. But obviously using a stand used to light a portal has no good side effects. So we were in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the sea, so we had to use a boat with our stand at the back. The Magician's Red and Star Platinum are basically best friends now. After a long trek, me and AVDOL finally came across Joseph, who was just hanging out at this like random house, and then we had a little talk. You don't nearly die. To be fair though, that fight did make me realize that I was nowhere near strong enough to take on Dio, the invincible vampire stand user, whatever he is now. I was nowhere near strong enough. I needed more armor, more understanding of my stand and the abilities I could use. And so I spent a really long time just looking for diamonds to try and make a full set of diamond armor, because right now I didn't have that. And I found this like pit which told me to jump, which I did because I do what I'm told and I'm a moron. So afterwards I decided I'd take on more of the wildlife, make sure they don't breed, and this was all because I wanted a brand new backpack and I wanted to make an enchantment table to enchant my armor and give it protection, because obviously that would be huge against tanking anything that Dio's stand can do, which obviously we have no idea what his stand is right now. I carried on just murdering wildlife until sunset came, and yeah, felt great. I hit the sheets with no regrets in my mind and woke up the next morning ready to make a brand new backpack, and this time it was going to be a diamond backpack, which said I had bling, which to be fair, I'm Jotaro, of course I do. I packed up my stuff and got ready to travel again until I found this like bridge thing, and then I came across that weird box thing again. And this time I decided to go inside of it, and I got these like stone masks, which I had no idea what they did. I didn't try it on or anything because they looked weird. And luckily my questions and just confusion would be answered very shortly, because I came across this massive mansion. And when I got close to it, I realized that it was the Joestar mansion, which is Joseph's last name, but I know he doesn't live in a mansion, so maybe this is like his dad's maybe or something. I had no idea, but it was open with vampires and whatnot, so I had to clear out the entire area, which in itself took an incredibly long time, since for some reason the vampires just all decided to live here, and it was just, they weren't even difficult to like fight, they were just very long to fight. They just took so long to die. So that was the main problem. But eventually built up this one room which still had like furniture in, and it turned out to just be someone's random bedroom with like a hat, a bloody knife, and pepper shakers, in this book. I thought the hat was cool though. I took that first. And you can throw it and it hurts people and it comes back to you. It was like a boomerang. It was pretty sick. I also tried on the guy's shirt, which looked good. I could tell the guy was buff back in his day, and I decided to go into the chest again and look at his notes. And this was from 1888, and it spoke about vampires and how they were made and what the mask is, which was pretty insane to me. It mentioned how he had one in his room, and so I checked around his room and I couldn't find anything that looked like a stone mask. The second page spoke about Hamon, which I know Joseph uses, and how vampires are like the reverse of it. And the third page spoke about Dio. So this had to be Joseph's granddad. With this new information, I decided to throw the stone mask that I got from that weird block thing, and I blew it up with this TNT left in the house. I decided I'd rather sleep under a tree than under that mansion roof, so I slept under a tree and hit this bridge the next morning, and I got attacked. When I looked to my right, I saw a guy just running away with a stand behind him, so I chased him, and what I found was pretty odd. I had no idea why these ropes are all just like scattered all over the area. I had no idea what it was supposed to do, and maybe I was supposed to be scared of this, which I mean I wasn't, and I just saw him creeping at me through the trees. But when I touched these things, I got shot with these like emeralds, and any of these I touched would just start to shoot emeralds all over the place, and they actually did quite a decent amount of damage and broke the area around me, which made it even harder to walk across, and I got hit by a lot of these. And he wasn't even moving, like he was taunting me, which really annoyed me, and every time I tried to get close to him, again, I would just hit these rope things and get hit even more and more. But luckily he got out. I jumped over his stand with my stand's sheer power, but he saw this coming, like AVDOL, and shot me away. But his downfall was his stamina, since he didn't realize that he'd be running out of stamina very soon, and that led to me taking him down. You probably should have stepped together. We traveled for a bit, just exploring the wilds, and honestly, it was pretty nice being with someone my own age. We came across this like tower, which at the top floor had this wither skeleton or something, which was the perfect opportunity to try and test KAKYOIN's like chemistry as like stand users, and honestly, it was pretty good. Me being a close range stand and him being a long range one, we kind of just bounced off each other, and it was almost perfect. We then found a village, and I chose this house to sleep in. I don't want to be with him anymore. The next day I got straight back to mining, and this time I had to get even more diamonds because every time I got into a stand fight, my armor would take a beating and break, which meant that diamond armor was probably not enough to withstand stands. I then upgraded my diamond backpack into an obsidian backpack, which made me able to hold even more than before. I found these dogs too and made one of them mine, and I decided I'd name this one, obviously, I'd name it Iggy. And it didn't seem to want to be named Iggy, but eventually it took it, and now we have Iggy. Found a new village and chose this home was my own, and now we can tell the difference because there's an obsidian floor, which, you know, who does that? And then I made this thing called a dog treat, which if you make it and like give it to your dog, you can customize it quite a lot. So I did just that. Now Iggy kind of looks like Iggy. I told the others my whereabouts, and since KAKYOIN got here first, we decided to just sit down and talk until a half-naked man came to the door, and he just stared at me menacingly. Turns out this guy had no good intentions, also was a stand user, so our fight started immediately, and he was close range just like me, so he had the exact same movement as me and was way quicker than me. And when he shedded his armor, he became even quicker, but he became so much weaker after that. And luckily, with short range and long range combined, this guy had no chance of beating us. And afterwards, it turned out he just wanted to test our strength and then became our friend, because that's the JoJo way. So I decided to show them Iggy, our brand new dog, and I think KAKYOIN took quite the liking since he made Iggy matching glasses. We just kind of looked at the sunset together, which was quite nice. Eventually, we got together and spoke about our final destination, Dio's mansion. I then came across this like pirate ship, which was easy to clear out, and honestly, all I wanted was the wool, because I had to go to the Nether to finally get something I actually hadn't gotten properly in vanilla Minecraft, and that was netherite, which took an unbelievable amount of time, and it was so painful. I do not like getting netherite. It was so long, but luckily with a stand it made it just that tiny bit quicker, and it wasn't as painful, but still was really not ideal. I got home, began smelting the ancient debris, which turned into netherite scrap, which in all of this turned into 4 netherite ingots, which was not much at all. But luckily, with that, I could turn my diamond armor into netherite armor, which hopefully would be able to withstand Dio's incoming attacks. Found these creepy guys again, which turn out they're like another version of vampires, which yeah, not great. So I found another desert temple, and it had a ton of good stuff like diamonds, golden apples, and this stand area. I ran through a desert for a bit, and then Joseph had a great idea to take a picture. So we did, and honestly, it was a great picture. After a while, I came across this like massive skeleton, it looked really cool. And by the way, there was gold inside of this thing, so this thing was really sick. Then eventually, I saw this massive just structure. Turns out this place was where Dio lived, Dio's mansion, in the middle of a desert. It looked honestly really impressive, but I ran back to a random house and let the rest of the Stardust Crusaders know that I had found Dio's mansion. Together we tried to infiltrate this place, and there were like these mutant enemies to our left, and AVDOL and IGGY decided to take on this alone, which gave us tons of time to try and figure out the right way to go. But I got blinded and couldn't see where I was going for a tiny bit. The enemies that were protecting Dio's mansion were really strong, so we honestly couldn't defeat all of them. We had to run past quite a lot of them. When we got to this staircase, we couldn't run up it. It was really weird. But eventually we did, and we saw Dio for a split second. Me and POLNAREFF decided to run another way to try and catch him off guard, while KAKYOIN and Joseph found him. And while I wasn't there, KAKYOIN was taken out in an instant, and Joseph had to try and run after me to try and tell me what happened. And when he got to me, in an instant he was stabbed somehow, which I didn't even see happen. It turned out him and our stand were very similar in power and speed, but there's one thing he had that I didn't, and his ability was to stop time. But it was weird because I could see his movements in stop time, but I just couldn't move myself. And Dio spammed this ability. It was so annoying, but eventually I realized that if I tried hard enough, I could move in stop time. But I didn't know how to stop time myself just yet. So whenever he stopped time and tried to like barrage me, for example, I was able to dodge his knives just in time because I could move in his stop time. But since I didn't know how to stop time myself just yet, my best bet was to try and take him down in real time. And when it came to that, I couldn't do much since we were matched so equally. And sometimes when he stopped time, I just didn't know what to do because sometimes I just couldn't move. So I had to take the attacks face first. And things only got worse since he stopped time and threw a road roller onto me. But luckily for me, by this time I managed to get the grasp of stopping time and stop time myself. And this time, I was able to take him down by myself. And that was my 100 days as Jotaro in JOJO'S Bizarre Adventure. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video where I survived 100 days as Dio in JOJO'S Bizarre Adventure Minecraft.